Naked Heart Revolution is the go-to podcast for high-achieving individuals seeking to transform their relationships and life. Hosted by Jenny Bingham, an intimacy reset coach. Each episode explores emotional reconnection, personal growth, or business insight through expert guests sharing real stories and strategies. Whether you want to deepen your connection with your partner or elevate your business, this podcast delivers the tools and mindset shifts needed for lasting change. Subscribe to join the community focused on intentional healing and empowerment. In order to make sure that your name is said properly, I'll say, good day, everybody. I would like to welcome you.
Viraf Baliwalla.
Excellent. And what is the service, the product, the goal that you offer the world today?
Well, I have a company called Transition Squad, and Transition Squad provides services for seniors. So we do estate sales, online auctions, but there's a whole raft of other services. We have a podcast of our own called Seniopedia, which as we add more and more content, we envision it being the everything how-to guide for seniors and caregivers.
So the caregivers, is it there a certain age group of these caregivers? Or because sometimes caregivers are the same age as the seniors themselves.
Well, that's actually very true. I just actually have a podcast, an interview that I did with one of our fans. His name is Angelo, and Angelo came to me and said, listen, I'm a senior, but I'm also a caregiver for my brother, who is a little bit older than me, but in much worse shape. And so, he asked his burning questions about how can I maintain my lifestyle? Because now that I'm retired, I don't have that steady income stream coming in. I don't have the colleagues to talk to on a daily basis. And at the same time, I'm taking care of my brother, which is taking up a lot of my time and energy. And so what can I do? And so we started by introducing a financial planner that specialized in seniors. And so we had Angelo as the first part of the interview. We brought in Will for the second part, and then back to Angelo so what did you think of the advice that Will gave you? So wow, it's so eye-opening, right? So you're absolutely right. Sometimes caregivers can also be of the same age, roughly. Sometimes a caregiver is, you're the spouse, or your spouse is ill, and you're taking care of them. So it's not always just about the senior. It could be a whole raft of different people. It could be the kids. So the range of ages and involvement could be very dramatically different.
Cool. So with that process, Vira, is it something that people should be already have planned and then they come see you? Or is it something that you're able to help them from the beginning?
It depends on their situation. The situation can vary. We often have gotten involved in just the downsizing part, but that's once they've reached that stage where either they're moving into a retirement home or sometimes then passing away, and now the kids have to take over and sell the house and liquidate and everything else. And so we get involved at different stages, but it just depends on a case-by-case basis.
So what would be the ideal time for people to come see you, or the ideal situation where they have this prepared, that prepared, and so on?
Well, planning is an important part of our aging process. And the more and more of these podcasts that we do on Seniopedia, the more I'm learning that you can start planning a lot earlier. And execution happens, but once you have all the information, the last thing you want to do is find yourself in a challenging, time-sensitive situation, and all of a sudden you have to react, and now it's a little bit too late. But if you can start even before retiring, long before sometimes, then you could put mechanisms in that will protect you down the road. Excuse me.
That's quite interesting, because I work with midlife couples, and even though they might be in the prime of their lives, as you said, if they planned a lot earlier, certain mechanisms can be put into place. Can you explain a little bit more on that aspect?
Sure. Let's say, for example, you own a business. Let's say the business is thriving. What are you going to do? You're going to be paying a lot of the revenues, and the profits are going to go to taxes. Whereas if you do a little bit of tax planning, for example, up front, then you can take some of those proceeds and put them into an individual pension plan. And so that way, as a sole proprietor or a small business owner, when you get to that stage when, okay, it's time to retire, now you've got a defined benefit plan that you can draw from. But that would have to start early enough so you can make enough contributions so that by the time you retire, that actually happens. So the planning part of it is very important, and people really have to think ahead. But unfortunately, if it's not a priority, we tend to forget, right? We tend to dismiss it for now. We'll worry about that when we're 65. And by that time, it's too late. You can't put in a pension plan when you're 65, right? That's just one example, right?
And then, so now tell me, what got you into, well, doing this to begin with? Because a lot of people, they have their organizations or profits or nonprofits, but what was the inspiration for you?
Well, I actually had sold many of my own homes privately years ago, and I've had several moves and always more successful at selling it privately. And so I developed what I call a private seller's toolkit, where we had a network of appraisers and lawyers and contract templates and things like that, and a website, of course, and we would help people sell their home privately. The first client we got actually had a mother with dementia. And so he was going through a lot of different pains, and it wasn't just about saving some commission. And so the next client was in a bit of a similar situation, and my friends at that, I'd reached that age where a lot of my social network was all around the same age, and they were having elderly parents who were passing away and or downsizing into a retirement home and things, and they were expressing to me the concerns that they had and the challenges that they had. And I had actually been through the process with my own dad some years back. And so the kind of light bulb went off and said, instead of trying to help people with saving some commission on the real estate, which most people shouldn't try to do it themselves anyways, they usually will end up losing out compared to going with an agent. But instead of trying to help people save a little bit of commission, let's try to help people, let's just pivot and try to help people who are in this challenging situation. And we went from, tons of realtors hating us for trying to encourage private selling to now tons of realtors loving us because we helped them with that whole downsizing process for their clients. They've sold a house. Now the house has to be emptied out because the new owners are going to be closing on it, in a few weeks or a month. And so here's a company that can come in, take care of everything, one-stop shopping. It's good for the customer. It's good for the agent. It's good for the buyer. It's good for us. And so it really created a win-win-win situation. That's how it all kind of started.
Oh boy, it seems like you said, a win-win situation. Is there even a downfall to this?
No, there's no downfall to it. We're all going to get there someday. You're going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there long before you get there because I'm older than you are. But we're all going to get there someday. And so if we put in the right mechanisms, we're going to need that help. And if we don't put in that help now, then, down the road, who's going to be there to be able to service this, right? To provide those services to the elderly.
True. So what are the top, let's say, 3 to 5 things that people should do in order to make sure that they're starting on the right step before, for example, they come and see you?
Usually, people will not think about this until it's, too late, right? Or towards the end of their downsizing process, because they're only going to be looking at this as, hey, I want to now sell my home and clear out the contents and things like that. And so we have programs where we can introduce them to what we call the great realtors out there. It's very difficult to actually find the great realtors. There's great realtors and then there's not so great realtors. And so it's too many times that we've heard about their negative experience because they didn't have access to the right people. And so we've got a program whereby we not only introduce them, it's an online platform through our website where we can introduce them to the realtor. And then at the end, once their home is sold, we actually provide a rebate, a commission rebate to them as well. So that's one of the things. They can come to us before they get to that point. But then even if they come to us before or after, they have to liquidate the contents of their homes. Now, we're not a liquidator, we're a downsizing company. So the two big differences there are that a liquidator just wants to get rid of everything at whatever cost, just to clear the place out. However, right from the beginning when we started this business, most of our clients were saying, well, I don't want to let it go for $1, right? Or next to nothing. If it's got more value and it goes for next to nothing, I would rather donate it to somebody in need. And so that's where sort of our full service comes in, whereby we'll go in, we'll try to get you as much cash as possible by selling these items through our own proprietary auction platform and selling platform. Whatever does not sell, we will then clear out the premises, we'll donate what we can, and then we'll dispose of the rest. So that's kind of just the tip of the execution part of it. However, if people call us prior to that, they can also use our services to help them acquire a vehicle at a substantial discount, right? So why start getting into a lot more payments than you need when you're, especially as you're a senior and you're limited to a fixed income, right? We've had situations where we have expertise and resources where if you get involved in a total loss, which means that the insurance company has written off your vehicle because it's been damaged beyond repair or it's been stolen. Well, we can help you get a much higher value for your settlement and keep the money in your pocket as opposed to elsewhere.
So for the people who wants to get a hold of you, a hold of your services, where exactly would they find you?
Well, they can look me up at my email, viraf@transitionsquad.com. That's VIRAF @transitionsquad.com. They can check out our podcast at Seniopedia. It's Seniopedia, like encyclopedia.com. And that'll take them to a branch on our website. They can see all our podcast episodes, but they can also see the resources that we have available for them, and they can contact us through there as well.